You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio. It's the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. Well, if you are the owner, then you are considered the CEO, the president of your enterprise. What are the keys to success as a CEO, president, entrepreneur? Or if you're thinking about starting a business, maybe you're jumping over from the corporate world. What are some of the success traits that you could bring over and really apply and help your business to grow, help your people to grow? Today's guest has an interesting and unique insight into this as an accomplished CEO. He is going to speak with us on personal trust communities. I'm speaking of Mike Thorne. Mike is known as a transformer whose mission is to restore human dignity to unleash greatness in people. After working with top consumer brands, he is now dedicating his career to working with high-performing individuals and entrepreneurs to play a bigger game in life through his personal trust community concept. Mike Thorne, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Thank you. I am grateful to be on the show.
Tell us a little bit about your background. You've worked with some top consumer brands, but be more specific. Tell us a little bit about your biography and your experience there in the corporate world.
So generally speaking, I'm a self-starting, self-motivating, goal-oriented risk taker. And I've taken the idea that instead of getting my MBA in a business school, I got it in life. So I've been blessed to spend a chunk of my career in the sporting goods industry. But then I translated that over into the home fragrance space as the president of Yankee Candle's wholesale business, and then most recently CEO of a synthetic turf business. So I've been able to really learn a lot in very, very different industries with no real connection to each other, and lived in about 8 or 9 states. So I've seen a lot, and I found that to be a very helpful way to bring a unique perspective to helping others.
Yeah, You've been president and CEO of these different companies, and they're very different. What would be the thing you think from your experience that connects, maybe not the companies, but what are the universal principles is what I'm looking for, the universal global principles, bedrock principles you find applicable no matter what the company is, no matter what the size is?
Yeah, every company focuses their attention on their P&L. So it's the profits and losses of the business. Everyone seems to know that. And a lot of leaders are head focused, which is where that is. And I would say that that's consistent across every industry. It's consistent across sizes of business and so on. And so that's where you see a lot of it. Where I would say the biggest opportunity and where I've seen it work, so Yankee Candle is a great example of this, and I could give examples where it didn't, is on the people side of it. And so I think the P&L that gets missed when people think about the business is the P is the people and the L is listening, learning, and leverage. And if you would focus more on that side of which is sort of the heart and the gut side of it. So I think a human leader needs to have the head, heart, and gut. And sometimes we just think about, what's the person's briefcase and they bring it to the door, when in reality, people are really looking for someone who can help unlock them personally. So I'd say that that's the biggest thing that I don't see leverage very well, is that people side of it. And I've seen it work in spades, so I know how powerful it is. But I'd say my experience across all these industries, both as a leader and as a consultant, it's dramatically lacking. People just don't have the skill set to do it as in a leadership position.
And that's interesting because as an entrepreneur, you're looking for opportunities. You're looking for unserved markets, underutilized assets. And so you're saying it's the heart side of leadership in business as opposed to the head side, P&L, profit and loss. But then I like the way you did the juxtaposition here. People is the other P on the heart side, P&L, people. And then L is listening, learning, and leverage. Listening and learning I get. Tell us what leverage means in this heart equation.
Well, so people don't bring their full self to work because there's typically some sort of lived experience. So I'll give you a personal. Mine is I was put up for adoption, and I was told at 9 I was adopted, and it really crushed me. I thought, who would ever give up their kid? And so as I went through my career, I always felt abandoned or I didn't trust people, and that's not a good formula when you're going to be put in a leadership position. And so people kept promoting me because clearly I was capable of delivering the results, right? Everyone looked at, well, you're delivering the financial and operational obligations of business versus a sales leader, then as a key account sales manager, then as a VP of sales, and ultimately as a president of a business. But unfortunately, as you go through your career in life, so you sort of start in a job and you have a career and ultimately hopefully you get to your purpose, you do need to be able to work with others and through others. And if you've never been given that training or you don't fully grasp that thing that's holding you back and that lived experience, whatever it might be, it could be an abuse that you went through. It could be people telling you growing up that you're worthless, you're not good enough, whatever it is. There's lots of things that hold people back. Then when they start moving in their career and start to lead other people or help organizations grow, that's a missing component. And your ability to step back and listen to what the organizations tell you and hearing the people's story, it's that inclusive mindset, you unlock a lot. And I could give you examples upon examples of people that were performing okay and people thought they were good, but then they were moving up in their career and everyone started criticizing them. But if you sit down with that person and just ask a simple question, just make a statement, tell me your story, you will learn, if they feel they're in a safe environment, so much about that individual. And so instead of saying what's wrong with this person, say what happened. And when you understand that and they feel it's trusting, I'm telling you, they'll move from a compliant role in the company to committed. They'll be committed to you and they're committed to the mission of the company. And I would just say, if you're not listening and learning from that and then leveraging it. And one example I would give you is I had someone in a leadership position. Short story was we were going to promote him beyond a place where I was getting uncomfortable. I met with him one-on-one, asked him to share his story with me because I hadn't been there that long. And when he did, he explained to me some of the challenges of growing up with his father was much older, died when he was young. His brothers were much older than he was, so he didn't have that sort of father figure that he was looking for. And to my, I didn't know this, but he saw me as someone who could be that person in his life. And what we ended up doing, he was someone who would drive me crazy because we could never hit the quarterly targets. And it was always like, what's the big deal if we miss the numbers? To a guy that once we had this dialogue, and it took a few of these obviously to build that trust, I could just walk in his office, I could knock on his door, open the door. He was a huge, huge Patriots fan. And I would just say, hey, it's Brady time. So I no longer had to spend all this energy trying to convince him that, hey, this is really important. We got to, whatever we say we're going to do, we follow through on our obligations. Now it was, and so I knew once we did that, I didn't have to worry. And if we didn't make it, it wasn't because he didn't make it happen. We had that kind of trust in the room. And I think that is just one example of many where you can just really build that. If you listen, you learn while you're listening, you're able to leverage that. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but now he was committed. He wanted to win together. And he said to me, after 7 years there, I got moved to a different division. He said, Mike, before you got here, we kicked field goals. Since you've been here, we're going for the touchdowns. And, just that is unlocking. He had all the capabilities, all the skills, but he was held back. And once he felt valued and felt he belonged and felt he could be trusted, and he knew that if he was given his best, even if it didn't work out, I was still there for him and I would still, support him. Amazing what happened.
Wow. That's a powerful story. And it's a really good segue into this concept you have come up with and are implementing that you call personal trust community, helping high-performing individuals and entrepreneurs play a bigger game in life. And by helping them to win in life, they're going to win in business as well. So you're especially those with lived experiences, you're helping leaders and people like the man in the story to be the best version of themselves and stop holding themselves back because of their fears. Tell us about this personal trust community concept.
So I believe when you go through life, and whether you're going from middle school to high school to college, on and on up through your business career, your personal life, going from single to being married, having children, whatever, you go through this phase I relate to as do I belong or not belong? Because every time I've watched this with people, they go into a new set of circumstances and then they question whether they really belong. Can they really do this? And then you start to build confidence, and then you believe in yourself. So there's sort of this belonging, building, believing process that you go through in all these different transformations in life. They can be moved through much quicker with a lot more confidence. You have this personal trust community. And what that is sitting down and asking yourself within these 5, I call them circles. Okay. So it's your personal well-being. So physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, and socially. So the way you do is you put all these circles, lay them out, and put those words in there. And you step back, get a piece of paper out. On the left side, it's just put it as a horizontally, not vertically. Draw a rectangle on the left side, draw a rectangle on the right side, and leave space in the middle. And as you do that on the left side, you just write down personally, professionally, everything that's going on in your life, where your head's at, how you're doing. Just lay it all out there. Just put the guts out there, what's happening. On the right side, you're going to put your North Star, like what is it you want to create for yourself is what I ask people. What do you want to create for yourself? And ironically, more people than you think know this. I had a young lady say to me, well, Mr. Thorne, I want to say what I want to do, but I'm afraid I can't because it's not possible. And I said, I want you to get that head trash out of there right now. Mm-hmm. Just put it down there. And her North Star was she wanted to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, but because she was a female, she didn't think she could get there. Mm. So let's say she lays it out. That's her goal. This personal trust community then says, amongst these 5 circles, who are the people in your life, or who are the people you'd aspire to be this can help you physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, and socially. And I want you to envision, Ralph, this idea of you're on a trampoline, you're in the middle of it, you're bouncing around, having a really good morning, bouncing up and down, and all these people around you that represent your trust community that are physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, and socially there for you. And not all these people are in every single one of those circles. Some people are really strong and for socially, and some spiritually, and so on. But the minute you start moving away from the center and start heading towards the edge, you're going to fall off or really get hurt. The people are moving the trust trampoline to make sure you stay in the middle, to keep you centered. And you have to decide who these people are. So physically, for example, I recently was in an Ironman. Well, my mother is a wonderful human being, and I can call her and tell her I'm going to go do this. But what's her first thing to me is going to be, oh, my God, don't do that. You're going to get hurt. Yeah. So from a physical standpoint, she's not the person I want to be building in that trust community for that particular, but she's very good on the emotional side and spiritually. She's my mother, right? Right. So I have to go find people in my life that fit these. I had a CEO. I laid this out to them, and he looked at it and said, Mike, I've never thought of my relationships in this way. And I said, tell me more. And he said, I have a very good friend of mine who I went to college with. And I go out with him periodically. We laugh, we joke, we tell stories. We remember that college. And he goes, we have a beer and dinner, and then we go home. He said, if I'm thinking about this correctly and I want to get better, especially in my business, and he's trying to find a new way to grow. He's sort of stagnated. And he said, this guy is very successful in business. He's a very intelligent guy. I trust him. I think from an intellectual standpoint, I could probably learn a lot from him. And I think that's what you're saying is me to go to him. And you only say 3 words. Outside of I love you, the 3 most powerful words I believe are I need help. I don't know many people that don't want to help others. And if you can go to that person and explain to them what you want help, you got to be clear. So you got your North Star, you're clear what you're trying to do. That person is guaranteed to help you. And slowly but surely, you reach a point where the 2 of you are lockstep and you're helping each other. And so if you're struggling, you're frustrated, you need some help, boom, pick up the phone, you call that person. He drops everything, listens clearly, and helps you through it. Same thing with someone spiritual. I have a priest that's been someone I met when I was 12 years old, great athlete. I just really admired him, and I just stayed in touch with him all these years. So I know I'm struggling spiritually, I know I can pick up the phone, call Father John, and there's no way I'm worried about his judging me. Same thing with socially. I have a close couple college friends that I know I can call and we can talk through anything. Now, I have lots of college friends that I can call and we can joke and laugh and have a good time, but I wouldn't share my inner fears and concerns with them necessarily. It doesn't mean they're not good friends of mine. So it's like an accordion. You know what I mean? You go through life, these different circles, you know, people in there move in and out or get smaller or bigger in there. And I personally believe if you build this, or when you build this, and you know what your North Star is, as you're marching towards that North Star and you're having ups and downs, because life is not a straight line, it's a team sport, you will find yourself getting faster through these transitions and transformations you just have to make in life. When you go from high school, college, your job, to suddenly your career, then you're managing a bunch of people as you're building your business. I believe this is the way to go versus the network concept.
Well, elaborate on that, but versus the network concept. And I do like your concept, by the way, the trust committee or community. It immediately resonates with me, and especially the very three simple words, I need help. And most people are not going to turn that down if you're asking it sincerely.
Yes.
But how is this even better than the networking concept?
I find the networking and mentoring concept is, and not for everybody, but a lot of times it's arbitrary or transactional. What I'm looking at here is you're getting into a deep conversation, and many times, especially those who had some lived experience, your ability and willingness to be vulnerable with people is very, very hard. And so a lot of times someone might say, you got this business issue, call Joe, he's really a lot of experience there, or call Sally or Sue. Well, what's your real issues, if you dig into people, a lot of times they are really dealing with something deeper. They really don't want to talk about what their real issue is. And so sometimes the mentoring can be really good, and sometimes there are mentors that can help you across all this. I'm not knocking the mentor and the network. I find this to be much, much deeper and more committed. And these are the people that are really rooting you on day in and day out. And it's a group of people that you're counting on. And you push whatever lever you want across these 5 circles, depending on what's going on in your day. I just think that if you say to someone, this is a trust community versus saying it's a network, I just think the connotation people take away. Network, when I talk to people about that, think, oh, they can help me get ahead of things. I can climb the ladder faster, or they're going to get me connected to someone I didn't know. And I think this is, I'll leave it this route. I'm very worried about the social and economic tearing fabric of what's going on in this country. It's been going on for 20 years, probably more than that. And I'm very worried that we're not teaching leadership in an others-focused way. And so before I go crashing into my grave, I want to make sure that we're thinking about, as we lead people and teach leadership, we're teaching people that, hey, you got to be thinking about the inequities in the world today and what role can you play as a leader versus check a box, we won or lost, and I got paid or didn't get paid, I'm ahead. That's how we teach leadership today. It's wrong. It's got us in a situation where people really are not thinking about the greater good and the others. Granted, you still got to deliver the financial and operational obligations. If you don't, then you'll be out and the business won't perform. So I'm not diminishing that. I just believe when you do both, boy, the power is amazing. And you start creating leaders who are thinking like that, and all of a sudden society will start to rise up in a more meaningful way. And we just don't have enough of that today.
Yeah, I agree. And you were right, I think, to point out, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You don't have to be focused on the financials to the extent that you don't have any kind of heart in people. And you don't have to feel like that, if we get more involved with people on a personal level, they're going to not perform and we're not going to make the numbers. It doesn't have to be an either or proposition. And in fact, if we involve people and get them involved on a personal level, on a heart level, people who are happy and feel like they belong and are in this personal trust community situation, when there's high level of trust in the workplace, that's different than what you're talking about. But just in general, when we make connections with people on a real level, they're going to perform better. They're certainly going to perform financially much better in a high trust environment compared to a low trust or no trust environment where people are completely disengaged at work.
Yeah, it's hard work. It takes courage. But I got advice from someone who worked for me. She didn't work. She wasn't a direct report, but she was on the team I was on. And she came to see me. We had an open door policy, and there was some issue going on. So HR was there. And she came to my office, and she immediately said, Mike, before we start, I just wanted to say something. And of course, that your mind starts thinking, okay, what did we do wrong here? And she said, we have gone through a lot of transitions, and we always have some pressure to deliver the financial and operational obligations. She said, I want to just tell you that even though we don't agree with every decision you make, you do spend the time walking us through what's going on, what the options that were considered. You reached out to people to evaluate what was the best decision to make within the choices you have. And we get and respect the fact that someone has to push the red button and make the decision. So again, I want to just thank you. It's grateful to work somewhere where you get enough respect where someone will say, okay, hey, we got a tough decision. We got to do X or Y. And here's what's going on. Here are the options we considered, and we talked this through as a group. And here's the final decision we're going to make. People feel like, okay, it wasn't like you just came in and started doing stuff, which I see a lot. Now, It takes more time. It's more work. It takes courage. But to me, that's how you lead.
Yeah, it reminds me of Stephen Covey. No involvement, no commitment. If you don't involve people in the decisions that you're making, they're not committed to it. And the other Covey example is handing down decisions from your corporate Mount Olympus. This is what has been decided, and everyone fall into place behind this. I really enjoy your concept. I want to circle back to personal trust community. Compared to, you said networking, you also said the typical mentoring. For myself and for a lot of our listeners, it's more coaching. Coaching is the rage. Coaching is the new mentorship. And I can immediately see and make a distinction between coaching and the personal trust community that you're talking about. Again, trust at work, that's another thing. But what you're talking about is 5 very specific people who are personally connected with you, supporting you. That's your personal trust community concept in a nutshell. And you may have a coach, you may have a mentor.
Not just 5. It could be more than, sorry to interrupt, it could be more than 5. It's not a limit.
Okay.
I get asked that a lot. There's no limit. It really is, what do you feel you need in that particular situation you're dealing with? And in some cases, it could be more than one. So I would never limit it. It's just a matter of who you, like mine, if you saw the list of people that I lean on, because I've been in so many different industries and I bump into so many things, I always just pause and say, now again, it's a lot of work because I've got a big trust community of people. I have a lot of people that I could call into this, that I reach that. So it's not, but it starts small. So I'm not saying 5 isn't right, but it does have the tendency to grow beyond those 5 if you work it, because there's sometimes different people helping different things. So I apologize for interrupting.
No, that's important. 5, we could say, is a starting point. It's a beginning, but certainly we're not limiting to 5. But it's best if you spread this out across these 5 categories of who you are, and then build from there. And I agree with your point that mentoring, networking, even coaching around a specific skill, for example, and we're talking about sports. We'll use the sports analogy. If you are a batting coach, for example, you're trying to coach a player probably who's struggling in their batting average to see what's going on with their swing and to give them suggestions. You're trying to help them improve a particular skill, but you're not necessarily invested in that person on a high level or on a deep level in terms of personal trust, community support. You're there more of a transaction to help them get better at a particular skill. What you're talking about goes way beyond coaching, way beyond mentoring, to building personal trust, community, very strong relationship with a handful of people who are really taking you and themselves to a much deeper and therefore a much higher level than just a transactional transfer of knowledge or skill set. Am I understanding it right?
Yeah, and I also want to be clear, though, because if anyone's at a coaching, because I do executive coaching, I'm not saying that's not effective. It's because I do both. And I've got people that CEOs that I do the coaching with, but also I can feel where they're holding themselves back. There's inner conflict. And so that requires a very different skill and a different trust level than just saying, do this or do that. And they walk away and you hope they do what you said you're going to do because you want to keep them as a client, right? You want to make sure they're paying client. I don't think that way. My feeling is I want to see someone rise up. I want to see someone just accelerate where they're going because they feel like they have the confidence and then they can be vulnerable and be okay with it. I had to go through some painful moments to get there. I was fired at 41. I'd learned the lesson the hard way. I met a lady Thorne expert who was an amazing and helped me unlock myself. And I spent 15 years, refining it all. So it takes some work and time, and there's great coaches that can do both. So there's executive coaches and mentors out there, and they're fabulous at what they do, and your network is fabulous. I'm not knocking it. I just think this takes a very, very dedicated, courageous approach to really think through all of those personal areas of your life, because if you're struggling in one, it's going to impact the others. And so how do you keep them all as strong as possible? And if you're thinking about that in that way, I believe you're going to be much more successful in life and be able to keep above the waves that come at you, especially if you're someone who's had a lived experience, because every time I get stressed before, I'm able to manage it much better now. I immediately go back to the abandonment and the lack of trust. And then I show that in the way I lead, which is not effective. And I had to understand all that. I had to find somebody who could help me navigate, like, what happened and why is it that you hit that and what causes that? Well, I now know what it is. I've read a lot about it. I understand the power of it's happened to be adoption. And so I can unlock all this now and say, okay, that's what's going to happen. Who can I have help me navigate this when I get to those points? And whoever's had some version of that, and those are the people, that's my avatar. Those are the people I like to talk to because I believe, because I understand it. And I've also been in the shoes of trying to build a business and grow a business and the pressure of all that. But I get that sometimes you're held back. You don't realize it. And you're so focused on driving the company forward, you don't realize the people are like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? And the reality is, maybe if they were able to unlock that, they might be more comfortable and be more vulnerable. And people could say, you know what? I love working for this person. They're a human being. And someone said to me, they go, Mike, the thing I love about the work you do is CEOs come into the room and they walk out as human beings. They go in as CEOs and walk out as human beings. And I think that's really, over time, is very true.
Yeah, very powerful. And I think the big takeaway here is, if you're listening to this and you're of the mindset that I've got it all under control, I know what to do, I don't need help, and you're one of those solopreneurs who you're just going to grab the bull by the horns and just plow your way through obstacles and goals and set things all by yourself. Here's what Mike is saying. Here's what Ralph is saying. Here's what many of our guests are trying to communicate to you. If you want to play a bigger game, you're going to have to learn how to ask for help. You're going to need help to get from where you are to where you want to be. So this whole notion that you can sit at home in your silo and just grow a business all by yourself, it's fantasy land. You're not going to get there.
Right.
So business is a team sport, and so is life.
Yes. Amen. Amen.
What are you working on right now, Mr. Mike Thorne, that has got you really excited?
Well, part of this journey is to put my life story in a book. And so this life story has morphed into all of this work. So that's got me really excited, because when you live something and you're so close, you don't really realize the value it brings. And because a lot of people have felt there's some value, I decided that I would put this into a story. I enjoy more stories than I do business books. So I want this to be the story of my life. And then in the book will be lessons learned along the way, both personally and professionally, that I trust that people will read it and say, boy, I could apply that. I don't need to have an expert. I can just apply it. And along the way, what's happened is, as these stories come out, I'm spending a lot of time on LinkedIn just sharing some of these thoughts and ideas and seeing if we can help people. So that's what I'm excited about. And I'm also building a Vistage practice, which is all about helping small, medium-sized business owners build better businesses and become better people. And I'm just building that practice out now. So I'm just excited that I can actually have an impact on future leadership, because I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm worried about as we go forward in this country.
Very exciting. And your book is coming out in the spring of 2022. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah, probably late spring. In fact, someone reminded me that it's my 40th high school reunion, and wouldn't it be something to show up with a book? And I said, I'm not sure I want to have my high school stories in that book because I might not get out of that high school a lot. I'm kidding. But yeah, it's just interesting. But yeah, sometime probably late spring. Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Well, this has been very insightful, taking this to a new level through the personal trust community concept. And I'm already mentally, and after we get off the air here, physically coming up with a list of people to start reaching out to and building my own trust community. So this has really, really been lots of value to me and to our listeners as well. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I would say to people that if you want to start to work towards a better version of yourself, there's a 5-minute journal you can get, and it allows you every morning to really wake up. And I believe discipline and gratitude are really important. And the discipline is obviously your well-being, but just get up in the morning instead of grabbing your phone or start to look at your emails or whatever, or watch some news, whatever. Get your mind right. The 5-minute journal is a really simple exercise to do that. It both gives you some discipline in a way to say, geez, what am I really grateful for? What am I really hopeful for? And so on. And then at night, you do the same exercise. And I think for some people, just a simple exercise like that might get your mind wrapped around why it's so important to have your head in the right space before you start diving into work every day. Because life is a team sport. I'm going to leave you with a quote, if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely.
Someone who worked with me sent me this quote. Yeah, as a sort of a final. He said, I used all the skills Mike taught me to help my son grow into an amazing adult. He's clearly on his way, ! But I would not be who I am today without having met Mike. I had leadership qualities when I met Mike. I moved to a different level after reporting to him. Learning how to inspire, teach, and build a team became something I never wanted to be without. And I think that's the bottom line. People really want you to help teach, train, and develop them. And too many leaders are just not thinking about that. But start with a 5-minute journal, and I think you can get your head straight as you head into the day, and you'll be a better person as you lead the day.
Yeah, very true. Very true. My mentor, Jay Abraham, has a saying that people are silently begging to be led. So there's your opportunity.
Yes, that's a great line.
Yeah, it is. Of course, we don't like bad leadership at all, and that's what people are resisting. But people, nevertheless, are silently begging to be led. So if that's your gift, go with that gift, but develop it not just in the head, develop it in the heart. Mike Thorne has shared his wisdom with us today. He is known as a transformer whose mission is to restore human dignity to unleash greatness in people. After working with top consumer brands, he's dedicated his career to working with high-performing individuals and entrepreneurs to help them play a bigger game in life through his personal trust community concept. Now, if you want to connect with Michael, you can do so at Michael B. Thorne on LinkedIn. So just go to LinkedIn, look up Michael B. Thorne, and you can connect with him and see what he's got going on, and get on the waiting list for his book and other exciting things that he has in store around this personal trust community. Life-changing and business-changing, transformational. I'm running out of adjectives here. This is powerful. Mike, keep up the good work. Thank you so much for being on Rebelpreneur Radio today. I really appreciate it.
I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and if I can ever be a resource of help, please let me know.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.